Okay, now in this short video, I want to talk about the Black Legend. The Black Legend is a set of stories that were told by propagandists for the English government in the 16th and 17th century. Now, you might say, why talk about something that was so long ago? And the reasons for it are that I think it helps you to understand UK culture. Because the Black Legend continues to affect the way that people think. If you think of a typical image of a Spanish person in UK and even American culture, it has been influenced by the Black Legend. So let me give you a few examples. Um, in westerns and cowboy films, the Hispanics are always seen as being dirty. They're also seen as being ignorant, superstitious, deceitful. Um, that's the common people. If you ever see an officer, the officer is always wearing too much gold, too many feathers in their helmet, lots and lots of medals, and they're probably skinny and not really athletic. The officer will be despotic, so he will use physical violence against his own men. He probably carry a sword and wear brocade. Now, this image of the Spanish was created as propaganda by the English government to suggest that the Spanish Empire under Philip II, Philip III, Philip IV was a despotic government run by uh, supremely powerful aristocrats and aristocratic families, with Philip II particularly in at the top, like a giant spider at the center of the web. They made use of some historical documents that were available across Europe, in particular a book by Bartolomé de las Casas called A Brief History of the Destruction of the Indies. Now, Las Casas, what he wanted to do, he was a Dominican friar, and his intention was to show the world how the conquistadores in um, the New World, as it was called then, had raped, tortured, killed, and mistreated the native population in the Indies, as they were called, the Indies, as the islands and Mexico, in order to get their hands on gold. Now, of course, there was a lot of truth to what Bartolome de las Casas said. Um, he, he suggested that these people that came, the adventurers that came as conquistadores, were not the highest in society. His position was that the Indians, if it was really the case that New Spain was part of the Spanish Empire, then these people should be subjects of the Spanish crown and protected by the Spanish crown, not seen as close to animals as the conquistadores seemed to see them. Now, it's highly hypocritical of the English to uh, cast their aspersions at the Spanish for their treatment of native peoples. If you look at the same period in UK history, the English settlers in North America were just as violent, just as discriminatory, and just as racist. And as the cultures continued into the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, the racism in British culture in particular around the world does not really need pointing to. The way that the British Empire behaved in India, for example, or throughout Africa, uh, the way that they introduced opium to the Chinese, um, the or even in Australia, the way they treated the Aborigine people of Australia. There seems to be a kind of hypocrisy about the English pointing the finger at the Spanish. And it is also true that England was as just as aristocratic as Spain. If you look at it dispassionately, you can hardly see any difference between the one and the other. But the reason that I want to focus on this and on the Black Legend, on this set of stories, is because it has a powerful effect on the way British people see themselves, particularly English people. I think Wales and Scotland are slightly different. I think they have a different feeling because Scotland certainly, for long periods of history, has been rabidly anti-English. So they have a different national character, if you like, not because they're different people, but because they want to create a national character that shows that they're different from the English. And the same is true of Wales. So I don't want to talk on behalf of Scottish and Welsh people. I think that would be unfair. But I can certainly talk on behalf of English people. And I think within England, there is certainly a strong sense that the common people have reservoirs of what they call common sense that is uh, enabled to flourish within the culture by a set of laws and structures and institutions that are not seen in Europe, in mainland Europe. So, whether it's in the 16th century with Spain or the Holy Roman Empire in the 17th century, the rise of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Germans in the 19th and early 20th century, or the French under Napoleon, the English in particular want to see themselves as separate and different from the rest of Europe, and particularly Spain. Now, please do not be offended, but generally, I would say that English people do not think that Spanish people are the same as English. They don't have the same desire for freedom that the English do. And I say do not get offended because if you meditate on it a little bit, you probably realize that there is something of a reverse black legend. So um, people from the north of Europe can be seen in popular culture as being, I think in Italy, for example, the English are called I sporchi, which means the pigs, because they're supposed to be not as clean as Italians, which is hilarious because the English would say the same as the Italians. So that's quite funny. Um, or in Spain, I've heard this expression "bárbaros del norte," so barbarians from the north. And the typical thing here would be English people that don't cut their fingernails, for example, or don't keep their hair trimmed, particularly the men. Maybe do not have the same kind of hygiene, personal hygiene, that Spanish people have. It's difficult to evaluate. The deepest irony of it is that the very people that promote Britishness, well, British culture, English culture, the flag, the cross of St. George, are probably the least cultured people in Britain. Um, for example, they're people that enjoy football. So, football, the typical English football hooligan who, these groups, we've all seen videos of it. These groups of like overweight, fat people um, drinking lots of beer and shouting, wrapped in the Union Jack or the Cross of St. George, and shouting at people in the street. Where does that come from? I think it comes from, the roots of it come from back at the time when the Black Legend was created. The other example of bad British behavior is also lower class. In Spain, you see in the Costa del Sol, for example, every time the tourist season comes around, you get groups of uh, English people from, usually working class people from cities in the Midlands going on a cheap holiday to drink too much, have sex, and get sunburnt on the beaches. Um, it's a national stereotype. What can I say? Um, and the irony is that those very people are the heroes of English historical legend. They are the heroes of what I will talk about in the next video. And that is the Jolly Jack Tar. And that is the subject of the next video. So if you're interested, hang on for that one.